The message arrived on a Tuesday. It traveled through the void on electromagnetic waves that most civilized species had abandoned 3,000 years ago. Radio, primitive, quaint. The kind of technology that archaeologists studied in museums dedicated to the embarrassing early days of spacefaring cultures. Ambassador Zetheranos stood before the Confederation Council, his six compound eyes studying the translated text scrolling across the crystalline display. Around him, representatives from 47 species filled the amphitheater chamber, a symphony of biological diversity that spanned the width of the known galaxy. Beings of chitin in scale, entities of pure energy contained in magnetic shells, creatures so massive they required anti-gravity platforms just to exist in standard atmospheric conditions. They were the Confederation. 10,000 worlds, 17 trillion sentient beings, an empire that had existed for longer than most stars, and they were laughing. The human message played again, rendered in perfect Confederation standard by translation matrices that had processed 1 billion languages. The voice was earnest, hopeful, painfully naive. We are the people of Earth representing the unified governments of humanity. We have recently achieved interstellar communication capabilities and wish to establish peaceful diplomatic relations with your organization. A Krovlax delegate, to all the armored scales and predatory eyes, made a sound like grinding metal. Laughter in his species. Several smaller beings chittered in their seats, their bioluminescent skin flashing patterns of amusement. Zetheranos gestured for silence with one of his forearms. The laughter died, but barely. The undertone of contempt remained thick as radiation in a reactor core. The analysis, he said, his mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among his kind. The holographic display shifted. A small yellow star appeared third-rate and unremarkable. 9 planets in lazy orbit. The third one glowed blue and green, mottled with white clouds. Pretty if you like that sort of thing. The data populated around it in flowing script. Species designation human. Single world civilization. Population 8.2 billion. Technology level classification 7 on the Confederation development scale. Nuclear fusion discovered but not weaponized. Chemical rocket propulsion. No faster than light capability. No energy shielding. No plasma weapons. No quantum manipulation. In short, primitives. They call their world Earth, Zetheranos continued. They have unified their planetary governments within the last decade. They consider this an achievement worthy of galactic recognition. More laughter rippled through the chamber. Most Confederation species had unified their homeworlds before achieving spaceflight. It was the natural order of things. You either unified or you destroyed yourselves. These humans had apparently managed the former, but only barely. Counselor Vershek, her crystalline form chiming with each word, leaned forward. They request an exchange of ambassadors. How delightful. They believe they can simply ask to join the Confederation as equals. The preliminary assessment suggests otherwise, Zetheranos said. He pulled up the economic projections. 8 billion individuals represents a substantial labor force. Their industrial base, while primitive, shows efficient organization. Their mineral resources are varied and rich. The third planet alone could supply our outer system mining operations for 2 centuries. The chamber fell quiet. This was the language the Council understood. Resources, labor, efficiency. High Counselor Yethnara raised one of her many tentacles. She was ancient even by Confederation standards, her personal age measured in millennia. When she spoke, every being in the chamber fell silent. The Confederation has always maintained that even the most primitive species deserve consideration. Her voice carried the weight of absolute authority backed by 1,000 successful planetary integrations. We shall send a diplomatic mission to this Earth. She paused, and Zetheranos could see the calculation in her ancient eyes. The same calculation that had guided the Confederation's expansion across the galaxy for 10,000 years. Of course, we must also assess their potential value to the Confederation. Their population numbers suggest adequate labor capacity. Their home world may contain resources worthy of proper management. We shall offer them protectorate status. If they prove cooperative, we may allow them to retain some level of self-governance. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Everyone in the chamber understood what happened to species that refused Confederation generosity. The vote was unanimous. Zetheranos would lead the mission. The Ascendant Glory. A mid-sized diplomatic vessel with enough firepower to reduce a planet's surface to molten slag would carry him to the Sol system. 3 weeks travel time at standard cruise speed. As the council session ended and the various species began filing out, Zetheranos reviewed the mission parameters one final time. The humans had included samples of their art and music with their message. Primitive but creative, the Cultural Analysis Department had concluded. Their mathematics were elementary by Confederation standards, though they had managed to grasp basic principles of physics and chemistry. Their literature spoke of concepts like honor and freedom and self-determination, concepts that would need to be properly managed once they became a protectorate world. Zetharanos almost felt sorry for them. They seemed genuinely enthusiastic about joining what they called the galactic community. They had no idea the galactic community was not a democracy of equals, but a carefully managed hierarchy where each species knew its place. 3 weeks, he thought. In 3 weeks, these humans would learn their place. He had no idea that Earth had been counting down to this moment for 3 years. 3 weeks later, Admiral Victoria Hawthorne stood in the command center buried 2 kilometers beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Colorado, and watched 12 warships materialize in Earth's orbital space. The screens showed them appearing like ghosts, resolving into terrible reality. One moment, empty void. The next, massive vessels displacing space itself, their faster-than-light drives leaving temporary distortions in the fabric of space-time. 12 ships, each one 2 kilometers long. Hull plating that shimmered with energy fields her sensors could barely register. Weapon arrays that made Earth's most advanced military hardware look like Stone Age spears. 400,000 kilometers from Earth. Close enough to be a threat, far enough to seem civilized. All hands to battle stations, Victoria said. Her voice was calm, flat, the voice of someone who had spent 3 years preparing for exactly this moment. This is not a drill. The command center erupted into controlled chaos, 300 personnel moving to their stations, screens lighting up across the circular chamber, communications officers opening encrypted channels to defense installations across the globe. Victoria was 45 years old. She had been flying experimental spacecraft since she was 23. She had commanded Earth's first orbital defense platform. She had lost her husband in a construction accident during the early days of the lunar shipyards. She had a daughter who was currently strapping into a fighter cockpit somewhere above the Pacific Ocean. And she had spent every single day of the last 3 years preparing for the moment when the Confederation came calling. Incoming transmission, her communications officer announced. Audio only, broadcasting on all frequencies. Victoria nodded. Let's hear it. The voice that filled the command center was artificial, rendered by translation software into perfect American English. But beneath the digital smoothness, she could hear the arrogance, the contempt, the absolute certainty of someone who had never been told no. People of Earth, this is Grand Admiral Krebthar of the Galactic Confederation Navy. Your world has been identified as suitable for integration into Confederation space. You will accept protectorate status and prepare to receive our administrative delegation. You have 72 standard hours to acknowledge your compliance. The transmission ended. Silence filled the command center. 300 people waiting for their commander to respond. 300 people who had families and homes and futures hanging in the balance. Victoria picked up her direct line to the White House. Mr. Secretary, she said, they just declared war. They don't know it yet. On the other end of the line, Secretary General Dr. Elias Whitmore's voice was steady. What do you need, Admiral? 48 hours. Maybe less, and permission to activate Protocol Indomitable when the time comes. You have both. God be with you, Victoria. Victoria hung up and turned to her staff. Get me a shuttle to the Ascendant Glory. If they want to negotiate, let's negotiate. Lieutenant Reeves, you have tactical command while I'm gone. If anything happens to me, Protocol Indomitable activates automatically. Understood. Lieutenant Kai Reeves, 28 years old and already responsible for coordinating Earth's orbital defense network, straightened in his chair. Understood, Admiral. Bring our people home. Victoria allowed herself the ghost of a smile. That's the plan. The shuttle that carried Secretary General Elias Whitmore and his diplomatic team to the Ascendant Glory was the most advanced spacecraft Earth had built, using only pre-wandering star technology. Chemical rockets, titanium hull, basic radiation shielding. To the aliens watching it approach, it must have looked like a rowboat pulling up to a battleship. Elias Whitmore was 58 years old. He had been a quantum physicist before he entered politics. He had helped draft the treaty that unified Earth's governments into a single planetary administration. He had stood before the United Nations and convinced 207 nations to surrender their individual sovereignty for the greater good of the species. And now he was about to meet beings from beyond the stars and tell them politely but firmly to go to hell. The airlock cycled. The diplomatic delegation stepped through into an alien world. The Ascendant Glory's interior was designed for beings far larger than humans. The corridors stretched 15 meters high. The walls were a living thing, some kind of bioengineered material that pulsed with faint light. The air tasted of ozone and something vaguely metallic. Ambassador Zetharanos waited for them in a chamber the size of a football field. He stood 2 meters tall on two thick legs, his forearms held in what might have been a gesture of welcome. His six compound eyes tracked the human delegation with the focused intensity of a predator watching prey. Secretary General Whitmore, Zetharanos said. His translator rendered the words in flawless English. Welcome aboard the Ascendant Glory. I trust your journey was comfortable. Elias bowed slightly, a gesture of respect he did not feel. Ambassador, thank you for receiving us, though I must confess your invitation came with terms we find troubling. Zetharanos' mandibles twitched. Amusement, perhaps, or contempt. Hard to tell, with an alien face. Secretary General, allow me to be direct. The Confederation encompasses 10,000 inhabited worlds. We maintain order and prosperity through a carefully structured system. Each member species contributes according to their abilities and receives protection according to their needs. He activated a holographic projector. The chamber filled with stars, thousands of systems connected by glowing trade routes and communication networks. The sheer scope of it was breathtaking, overwhelming, designed to be. Your world, Zetharanos continued, would best serve as a protectorate. Your population would be relocated to designated residential areas optimized for efficiency. Your industrial capabilities would be integrated into the broader Confederation economy. Your military forces would be disbanded as protection would be provided by Confederation security. Elias felt his jaw tighten. Around him, the other members of the diplomatic team stood frozen, processing the reality of what was being offered. Slavery, dressed up in bureaucratic language and backed by overwhelming force, but slavery nonetheless. I'm afraid that proposal is unacceptable, Elias said quietly. Humanity will remain free and self-governing. We appreciate your visit, but we respectfully decline your offer. The silence that followed was absolute. Zetharanos stared at the small human in front of him. His translator must be malfunctioning. Surely these primitives could not be refusing the generous protection of the Confederation. I believe there has been a misunderstanding, Zetharanos said slowly. The Confederation's offer is not a negotiation. It is an inevitability. No single world species has the capability to exist independently within our sphere of influence. Then we will be the first, Elias replied. For the first time in his 300-year diplomatic career, Ambassador Zetharanos found himself genuinely speechless. The demonstration came 36 hours later. Victoria watched from NORAD as the Ascendant Glory's weapon systems came online, energy signatures spiking across every sensor Earth had pointed at the sky. Crystalline focusing arrays glowing with barely contained power. Plasma cannons rotating toward a target 200 kilometers off the coast of California. Santa Catalina Island. Uninhabited. Rocky. 21 square kilometers of land that had existed for millions of years. All civilian vessels clear of the target zone, Lieutenant Reeves reported. No human casualties expected. Victoria nodded. Her hands gripped the edge of her console hard enough to hurt. Record everything, every wavelength, every energy signature, every particle emission. I want a complete tactical analysis. The plasma beam that lanced down from orbit lasted 3.7 seconds. When it ended, Santa Catalina Island was gone. In its place, a perfectly circular area of fused glass that reflected the sunlight like a mirror. The ocean floor itself had been vitrified, melted into a crystalline sheet extending 17 meters below the former sea level. The energy release had been so intense that steam clouds rose 3,000 meters into the atmosphere visible from space. 21 square kilometers, 3.7 seconds. Every screen in NORAD showed the aftermath. The shockwave rippling outward through the Pacific. The tsunamis racing toward the California coast, small but measurable. The heat bloom dissipating into the atmosphere. Energy output estimated at 47 petajoules, Reeves said quietly. That's equivalent to 11 megatons. A single shot. Victoria let the implications sink in. The Ascendant Glory carried 12 such weapons. The Confederation battle fleet, according to intelligence from the Wandering Star, contained over 50,000 ships. Earth's entire nuclear arsenal launched simultaneously might destroy one Confederation cruiser. This was the reality they faced. This was the enemy they had to defeat. Her console chimed, encrypted transmission from Secretary General Whitmore still aboard the Ascendant Glory. Admiral, Elias said. His voice was steady, but she could hear the steel beneath it. Our position remains unchanged. I'm returning to Earth. How long do we have? Victoria glanced at the countdown clock on her main screen. 35 hours, 17 minutes until their deadline expires. Sir, I need to know. Are we really doing this? We are, no hesitation. I just told Ambassador Zethranos that humanity chooses freedom over survival. Now we need to prove we can have both. Protocol Indomitable is authorized. Make it happen, Admiral. Victoria closed the channel and stood. 300 faces turned toward her, waiting for orders that would determine whether the human species survived the next 2 days. All stations listen carefully, she said. Activate Protocol Indomitable. Authorization Hawthorne Alpha 97. I want every asset we've been hiding for 3 years online and operational within the hour. Contact Prophet Kane at Nevada Site 1. Tell him it's time. She paused, looking around the command center at the men and women who had trained for this moment, who had kept Earth's greatest secret through 3 years of preparation. And get me a direct line to my daughter. I need to know her squadron is ready to flout. Lieutenant Reeves began issuing orders, his fingers flying across his console. Across the solar system, systems that had been dormant for months flickered to life. Stealth fields that had concealed shipyards and weapons platforms and things the Confederation had no idea existed began powering up. In orbit around the moon, hidden beneath electromagnetic camouflage that bent sensor readings into false negatives, 18 warships began their final pre-flight checks. In the Nevada desert, in a facility buried 3 kilometers beneath the ancient rock, Commander Silas Kane stood before the largest construction project in human history and smiled. Admiral wants to know if we're ready, his assistant said. Prophet Kane looked up at the skeletal framework towering above him. 12 kilometers of biomechanical hybrid technology, fusion reactors that could power a small city, weapon systems reverse-engineered from Confederation databases and improved by human ingenuity, armor that adapted and strengthened with every hit it took. The UES Indomitable, humanity's largest gamble, their one chance at survival. Tell the Admiral, Prophet said, that in 35 hours we're going to change the galaxy forever. He pulled up the construction timeline on his tablet. Critical systems 91% complete. Reactor core online and stable. Main weapons array 73% operational. Adaptive armor plating 86% coverage. They needed 12 more hours, maybe 15 to be safe. The Confederation was giving them 35. For the first time in 3 years, Prophet Kane allowed himself to believe they might actually pull this off. Above him in Earth orbit, the deadline clock continued its countdown. 34 hours, 52 minutes until Grand Admiral Krevthar's battle squadron arrived to enforce Confederation authority. 34 hours, 52 minutes until humanity showed the galaxy what 3 years of preparation could accomplish. 34 hours, 52 minutes until the war began. But Victoria Hawthorne, standing in her command center 2 kilometers beneath a Colorado mountain, watching her secret fleet power up across the solar system, was already 3 moves ahead. She had learned chess from her father. She had learned patience from 3 years of waiting. She had learned ruthlessness from watching an island vaporize in less than 4 seconds. And she had learned one crucial lesson from Captain Era Volson of the Wandering Star, shared during a midnight conversation 3 years ago in a medical bay orbiting Jupiter. The Confederation had never lost a war, not in 10,000 years of expansion, not against 10,000 different species. They had never lost because they had never faced an opponent who knew exactly how they fought, exactly what technology they used, and exactly how to counter every advantage they possessed. Until now. Victoria pulled up the tactical display showing the position of every Confederation ship in the solar system. 12 vessels. She had 18 hidden destroyers, 240 fighters, and in 35 hours, 1 battleship that would redefine what the word warship meant. The odds were almost even. Almost. She opened a channel to Prophet Kane. Silas, this is Hawthorne. I need you to understand something. We don't need Indomitable to be perfect. We need her to be terrifying. Can you do that? Prophet's laugh crackled through the speaker. Admiral, when I'm done, the Confederation is going to have nightmares about this ship for the next 1,000 years. Good, Victoria said, because we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species the Confederation has ever conquered. We're fighting to prove that freedom is stronger than force, and we're going to win. She closed the channel and looked up at the main screen where the countdown continued its relentless march toward zero. 34 hours, 47 minutes, the galaxy was about to change, and Victoria Hawthorne was going to make sure humanity was the one holding the pen when they rewrote the rules. The stealth fields collapsed at 0347 hours Universal Time. It started with the shipyards. Hidden installations scattered across the solar system, each one camouflaged beneath electromagnetic fields, that bent sensor readings into false data. Facilities that had consumed 3 years of Earth's industrial output. Factories that had operated in absolute silence, their workers sworn to secrecy on pain of treason charges. In lunar orbit, the first destroyer shimmered into existence. Then another, and another. 18 warships materialized around Earth's moon like ghosts becoming solid, each one 800 meters long, each one built from reverse-engineered Confederation technology and improved by human desperation. Hull plating made from adaptive composites that learn from damage. Fusion reactors burning hotter and cleaner than anything the Confederation had seen in a millennium. Rail cannons capable of accelerating tungsten projectiles to 40% the speed of light. They hung in space like sharks circling prey, their running lights painting the lunar surface in shades of blue and white. Aboard the Ascendant Glory, every alarm system screamed at once. Grand Admiral Krevthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, his scales shifting through colors that indicated shock and disbelief. Around him, his crew scrambled to their stations trying to make sense of sensor readings that violated every assumption they had made about this primitive world. Tactical analysis, he barked. His voice was steady, but his predatory instincts were screaming warnings. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Analyst Tavessa, her crystalline form pulsing with rapid calculations, looked up from her console. Admiral, I'm detecting 18 vessels in lunar orbit. Mass displacement suggests military classification. Energy signatures match our Level 3 destroyer specifications. The bridge fell silent. Level 3. That was impossible. Earth was classified at Level 7. The gap between 7 and 3 represented thousands of years of technological development. Civilizations didn't leap that divide in a decade. They didn't leap it in a century. Confirm those readings, Krevthar said quietly. Dangerous quiet, the kind of quiet that preceded violence. Confirmed, sir. Multiple redundant scans. The vessels are real, they're armed, and their stealth technology is sophisticated enough that we've been orbiting this system for 36 hours without detecting them. Krevthar felt something he had not experienced in 200 years of military service. A cold spike of fear lancing through his chest. He had commanded fleets that pacified rebellious worlds. He had personally overseen the integration of 47 species into Confederation Protectorate status. He had never failed a mission, and he had never encountered an opponent who could hide an entire fleet from Confederation sensors. Open a channel to those vessels, he ordered. I want to know what we're dealing with. The response came immediately, not from the destroyers, but from the planet below. A single face appeared on every screen on the Ascendant Glory's bridge simultaneously. Human, female, middle-aged, eyes like blue ice set in a face that showed no fear whatsoever. Fleet Admiral Victoria Hawthorne stared at Grand Admiral Krevthar from across 400,000 kilometers of void, and she smiled. Admiral Krevthar, she said. Her voice was calm, professional. The voice of someone who held all the cards and knew it. This is Fleet Admiral Victoria Hawthorne, Earth Defense Force. You seem surprised. Allow me to explain. She gestured and the view behind her shifted. Split-screen images appeared showing shipyards across the solar system. Massive construction facilities in orbit around Mars. Automated manufacturing platforms hidden in the asteroid belt. Weapons foundries carved into the moons of Jupiter. 3 years of secret construction revealed in 30 seconds of footage. 3 years ago, Victoria said, a Confederation vessel entered our system. The Wandering Star. She was damaged. Dying. Her crew was beyond saving by their own technology. We saved them anyway. Not because we expected anything in return, but because that's what we do. The images shifted again. Medical bays, human doctors working alongside alien physiology, desperate attempts to save lives that should have been beyond saving. Captain Ira Volson survived, Victoria continued, and in gratitude she gave us something precious, knowledge. Complete technical specifications of Confederation military technology. Detailed analysis of your expansion doctrines. Everything we needed to understand what was coming. Krevthar's claws dug into his command console hard enough to leave marks. Volson. The Wandering Star had been listed as lost with all hands. No distress signal. No wreckage. The greatest mystery of the Confederation Navy in 3 decades. And these humans had hidden her survival. Had extracted military secrets. Had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. We knew you were coming, Victoria said. Her voice dropped, became steel wrapped in silk. We knew you would demand our surrender. We knew you would offer us slavery dressed up as protection, so we prepared, we built, we trained, and now you're orbiting a world that is far more dangerous than your intelligence suggested. She leaned forward and her eyes locked onto Krevthar's through the video link. You have 18 Confederation-class destroyers in your task force. I have 18 waiting in lunar orbit. You have superior numbers across your empire. But I have home field advantage. You came here expecting to find primitives with chemical rockets. Instead, you found an opponent who knows every trick you know and has had 3 years to improve on them. Victoria stood. Behind her, the NORAD command center hummed with controlled activity. So here's what's going to happen, Admiral. You're going to take your fleet and leave our system. Right now. We're going to demonstrate exactly what 3 years of preparation can accomplish. Your choice. You have 60 seconds. The transmission ended. Krevthar stood on his bridge, surrounded by officers who had never seen him hesitate, and tried to calculate odds that no longer made sense. Victoria cut the transmission and allowed herself exactly 5 seconds of trembling hands before she locked it down. Her comm officer was watching. Reeves was watching. 300 personnel in the command center were watching their admiral to see if she was as confident as she sounded. She couldn't let them see the fear. Status of the fleet, she said calmly. Reeves pulled up the tactical display. All 18 destroyers online and responding. Captain Sarah Hawthorne reports Fighter Squadrons Alpha through Kilo ready for immediate launch. 240 birds hot and ready. Victoria nodded. Her daughter was up there, 22 years old and commanding a fighter squadron in humanity's first interstellar war. Pride and terror warred in her chest. She locked both away. What about the big one? Reeves hesitated. Prophet Kane reports Indomitable at 87% completion. Reactor core stable. Main weapon systems at 73% operational capacity. He says, and I quote, "She'll fly, but she won't be pretty about it." Time to full operational status. 12 hours minimum, 15 to be safe. Victoria checked the countdown clock. The Confederation's 72-hour deadline expired in 34 hours. She had 18 destroyers now. In 12 hours, she would have the Indomitable. The question was whether Krevthar would give her those 12 hours or whether he would attack immediately with everything he had. The answer came 90 seconds later. Admiral, we're detecting weapons systems powering up across the Confederation fleet. Energy spikes consistent with pre-combat protocols. Victoria felt her heart rate spike and forced it down through sheer willpower. This was it, the moment 3 years of preparation came down to. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Hawthorne. Condition 1, Formation Delta 9, defensive posture. I say again, defensive posture. Make them come to us. Make them show us everything they have. We need 12 hours, people. Let's buy it. She switched to a private channel, one that connected directly to the cockpit of a fighter currently docked on the destroyer EDS Defiant. Sarah, she said quietly, be smart out there. Remember your training. Come home to me. Her daughter's voice crackled back, young and fierce, and trying so hard to sound confident. Always do, Mom. I mean, Admiral, sir. Victoria smiled despite everything. Kick their asses, Captain. Yes, ma'am. The channel closed. Victoria turned back to the main tactical display and watched 18 Earth destroyers move into formation against an opponent that had conquered 10,000 worlds. The first battle for Earth's independence was about to begin, and they were going to win or die trying. The Confederation fleet struck at 0403 hours. Krevthar had run the tactical analysis 3 times. 18 destroyers versus 12 cruisers should have favored the cruisers. Superior tonnage, superior crew complements, superior experience. His ships had fought in hundreds of campaigns. The human vessels were untested, fresh, green, but they knew his technology. That changed everything. All ships, he broadcast. Primary targets are the human destroyers. Disabled don't destroy. We need to capture their technology intact. Fire when ready. The Confederation fleet opened up with everything they had. 340 plasma torpedoes launched simultaneously, trailing fire across the void. Each one carried enough destructive force to crack a mountain. Each one guided by targeting systems that had been perfected over millennia of warfare. They streaked toward the Earth fleet like falling stars, beautiful and terrible. Aboard the EDS Defiant, Victoria Hawthorne watched them come. Time to impact, Reeves said. His voice was steady, but she could hear the tension underneath. This was his first combat command. Hell, it was everyone's first combat command. Earth had never fought a space battle before. 5 seconds. 4. 3. All ships, Victoria said calmly. Adaptive armor to maximum. Route all available power to hull integrity. This is what we built them for. The torpedoes hit. The Defiant shuddered as 17 plasma warheads detonated against her hull in a cascade of superheated energy. Sensors screamed. Damage reports flooded in. The main view screen showed a wall of fire where the bow should have been. Then the fire cleared. Hull integrity, Reeves said, his voice rising with disbelief. 94%. No, wait. 96%. Admiral, it's increasing. The adaptive armor is analyzing the impacts and restructuring at the molecular level. It's getting stronger from the hits. Victoria felt something unknot in her chest. Prophet Kane's wild theory had been right. The biomechanical hull plating they had developed wasn't just armor. It was a learning system. Every impact made it more resistant to the next one. Damage across the fleet. EDS Valor took heavy fire. Hull integrity at 89% but stable. EDS Guardian reports minor damage to sensor arrays. Everyone else is operational. Admiral, they hit us with 340 torpedoes and we're still here. Victoria allowed herself a tight smile. Then let's show them what we brought. All ships return fire. Rail cannons full spread. Target their weapon systems. Let's see how they like kinetic warfare. The Earth fleet responded. 18 destroyers, each mounting 6 rail cannons, fired as one. 108 tungsten projectiles, each weighing 500 kilograms, accelerated to 40% the speed of light in less than 2 seconds. The math was simple and terrifying. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. At 0.4 C, a 500-kilogram slug hit with the force of 50 megatons. More energy than the largest nuclear weapon in Earth's old arsenal. And they had just fired 108 of them. The projectiles crossed 400,000 kilometers in less than 6 seconds. Too fast for point defense systems designed for plasma torpedoes. Too small for energy shields calibrated for particle beams. They hit like the fist of an angry god. The Confederation cruiser Eternal Judgment took 12 direct hits. Her shields flared, absorbed maybe 3 of them, and then collapsed. The remaining 9 slugs punched through hull plating designed to withstand plasma fire, but never tested against relativistic kinetic rounds. The cruiser didn't explode. It just died. Systems failure cascading through her structure. Reactor containment breach. Engines offline. Life support failing. She went dark and began drifting, tumbling slowly in the void. Another cruiser, the Righteous Fury, took 7 hits to her primary weapon array. The targeting computers shattered. The plasma-focusing crystals cracked. She wasn't destroyed, but she wasn't fighting anymore either. Across the Confederation fleet, damage reports flooded in. 2 ships crippled. 3 more with significant damage. And the human fleet was still at nearly full combat effectiveness. Krevthar stared at his tactical display and felt the cold certainty of defeat begin to creep into his calculations. Captain Sarah Hawthorne sat in the cockpit of her fighter and watched the capital ships trade fire through her canopy. The Defiant's launch bay doors were open. 240 fighters sat ready to launch their pilots, waiting for the order. It came 30 seconds later. All squadrons, this is Hawthorne Actual. Launch, launch, launch. Protect the destroyers. Engage Confederation point defense and missile systems. Make them blind. Go, go, go. Sarah's hands moved through the pre-flight checklist on pure muscle memory. Reactor online. Weapons hot. Flight systems green across the board. She was flying a bird that had been designed 6 months ago and built in 3. Every piece of technology in this cockpit was untested in real combat. She was about to become the test pilot. Alpha Squadron, form on me, she said. We're going hunting. 20 fighters launched in perfect formation, their fusion drives burning blue-white against the darkness. Sarah led them in a sweeping arc around the Defiant, using the destroyer's bulk for cover as they accelerated toward the Confederation line. Her targeting computer painted threats across her HUD, point defense turrets, missile batteries, plasma cannons that could vaporize her fighter with a single shot. Standard doctrine said to engage from range. Use missiles. Stay safe. Sarah threw out standard doctrine and punched her throttle to maximum. Her fighter screamed forward at speeds that would have torn apart an atmospheric craft. Mach 47 and climbing. G-forces that would have killed her without the inertial dampening system they had reverse-engineered from Confederation tech. The enemy point defense opened up. 23 plasma bursts tracking her trajectory. 23 shots that should have ended her life. She rolled her fighter jinked left up vertical to the plane of engagement and watched the plasma bolts streak past so close her sensors registered hull heating. Too slow, she muttered, and armed her weapons. Sarah Hawthorne had been flying since she was 16. Atmosphere birds at first, then orbital shuttles, then the experimental fighters her mother had commissioned for the defense fleet. She had logged 3,000 hours in simulators, running scenarios based on Confederation tactical doctrine. She knew how they fought. She knew what they expected. She gave them something different. Her fighter dove straight toward the cruiser, Manifest Destiny, ignoring the defensive fire that turned space into a light show around her. At the last second, she pulled up hard, rolled inverted, and fired her entire missile loadout at point-blank range. 6 missiles, each one guided by AI systems that made split-second adjustments faster than any biological pilot could react. They slammed into the cruiser's primary weapon array in a daisy-chain detonation that lit up the void like a small sun. "Target neutralized," Sarah reported. Her voice was steady even though her hands were shaking on the stick. "Alpha 3, Alpha 7, you're with me. We're going after the next one." Behind her, 239 other fighters were doing the same thing, swarming the Confederation ships, hitting them from angles the big cruisers couldn't bring their main weapons to bear, moving too fast for the automated defenses to track. It was chaos. It was beautiful. It was working. Victoria watched the battle unfold on her tactical display and felt something like hope beginning to grow in her chest. They were holding, more than holding. They were winning. The Confederation fleet was in disarray. 2 cruisers disabled, 4 more taking heavy damage. The fighters were running wild through their formations, and every time the enemy tried to reorganize the Earth, destroyers would hit them with another rail cannon volley. Reeves was coordinating the fleet with the precision of a chess master. Lieutenant Okafor on communications was routing damage control teams with inhuman efficiency. The entire command center was operating like a machine that had been built for exactly this purpose, which Victoria reflected was exactly what it was. "Admiral," Reeves said, "Confederation fleet is beginning to pull back. They're moving to 2 million kilometers distance." Victoria nodded. "Let them go. Recall the fighters. We need to regroup and assess damage." She opened the channel to Prophet Kane. "Silas, this is Hawthorne. We bought you some time. How much longer until the big one is ready?" Prophet's voice came back exhausted but exhilarated. "Admiral, you just demonstrated our technology in a live-fire engagement. I have so much data I don't know where to start analyzing it. Dr. Matsuda's materials team is already running analysis on the adaptive armor performance. Give me 12 hours, maybe 11 if we skip the safety checks." "You have 11. Make it count." She closed the channel and pulled up the casualty reports. 34 fighters lost, 89 crew injured across the fleet, 2 destroyer captains requesting permission to return to lunar orbit for repairs. Against that, 2 enemy cruisers disabled. 1,200 Confederation casualties estimated. And most importantly, they had proven that Earth could fight and win against supposedly superior technology. Victoria opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Hawthorne. Outstanding work. You just wrote the first page in humanity's combat history, and you wrote it in fire and fury. We have 11 hours until the next phase. Use them wisely, repair your ships, rest your crews, and prepare for the main event." She paused, looking around the command center at faces that showed exhaustion and pride and the fierce joy of survival. "They came here expecting us to roll over. We showed them what happens when you threaten humanity's freedom. In 11 hours, we're going to show them what happens when you refuse to leave. Hawthorne out." The channel closed. Victoria sat back in her command chair and allowed herself exactly 30 seconds of relief before the next crisis hit. It came from Sarah's squadron frequency, her daughter's voice still high on adrenaline and combat endorphins. Admiral, you should have seen it. We took out their entire point defense grid on 3 cruisers. They tried to target us, and we were just too fast. It was incredible." Victoria smiled despite the fear that was a constant weight in her chest. "I saw Captain. Excellent flying. Now get your squadron home and get some rest. This isn't over." "Roger that," Sarah Hawthorne returning to Defiant. "Oh, and Mom, thanks for building us the good toys." The channel clicked off. Victoria sat alone with her thoughts and her fears, and the tactical display that showed a Confederation fleet regrouping at the edge of weapons range. This had been the easy part. Krevthar had been surprised, unprepared, testing their capabilities. The next engagement would be different. He would bring everything, every ship, every weapon, every tactical advantage he could muster. But in 11 hours, Victoria would have the indomitable. And when that ship took the field, the Confederation was going to learn what 3 years of human ingenuity and desperation could create. She opened a secure channel to Nevada Site 1 and watched the live feed from the construction bay. The UES Indomitable hung in space 12 kilometers of biomechanical hybrid technology that was going to change the balance of power in the galaxy. Prophet Kane appeared on screen looking like he hadn't slept in 3 days, which he probably hadn't. "Admiral," he said, "I need you to understand something. What we're building here, it's not just a ship, it's a statement. When Indomitable enters that battle, every species in the Confederation is going to see it and know that humanity cannot be conquered, cannot be controlled, cannot be stopped." Victoria looked at the warship taking shape before her eyes and nodded slowly. "Then make sure she's ready, Silas, because in 11 hours we're going to end this war before it really begins. And we're going to do it in a way that the galaxy remembers for the next 10,000 years." The feed cut out. Victoria returned her attention to the tactical display and the countdown clock that showed 11 hours 43 minutes until the Indomitable would be operational. 11 hours until humanity bet everything on a single ship. 11 hours until they proved that freedom was worth any price and any sacrifice. The countdown continued. The fleet held position, and Victoria Hawthorne prepared to change the galaxy forever. Admiral Krebthar sat alone in his private quarters aboard the Ascendant Glory and did something he had not done in 2 centuries of military service. He asked for help. The secure transmission took 6 minutes to reach Confederation High Command. 6 minutes while he sat in the darkness watching the tactical replay of the engagement that should have been a simple suppression operation and had instead become his first defeat in 47 campaigns. The response came from Fleet Marshal Tor Vanis himself, ancient, battle-scarred, the living legend who had personally overseen the integration of 600 worlds into Confederation space. "Krebthar," the Marshal's voice was granite grinding against steel. "Explain." "Sir, Earth is not what our intelligence indicated. They possess level 3 military technology, 18 destroyers equipped with adaptive armor and kinetic weaponry. They know our tactical doctrine. They've been preparing for our arrival for 3 years. I've engaged once and suffered significant casualties. I'm requesting immediate reinforcement." Silence stretched across the void. "You're telling me," Torvanis said slowly, "that a single world species with no prior spacefaring capability has built a fleet that damaged your task force?" "Yes, sir." More silence. Krebthar could imagine the Marshal running calculations, assessing probabilities, determining whether to relieve him of command for incompetence or send support. "The Eternal Dominion is currently in the Antares sector," Torvanis finally said. "She can reach your position in 11 hours with a battle group of 40 cruisers. You will wait for reinforcements. You will not engage the human fleet again until you have overwhelming numerical superiority. And Krebthar, when this is over, you will personally explain to the Council how a level 7 species acquired 3 years of advance warning." The transmission ended. Krebthar sat in the darkness and watched the countdown clock. 11 hours until the Eternal Dominion arrived. 11 hours until he could restore his honor with a decisive victory. He had no idea that 11 hours was exactly how long Earth needed to finish building a nightmare. In the Nevada desert, 3 kilometers beneath ancient rock that had stood since before humans evolved, Commander Silas Kane was losing his mind. Not from stress, though there was plenty of that. Not from exhaustion, though he had been awake for 63 hours straight and was running on stimulants and coffee and pure terror-fueled adrenaline. He was losing his mind because the laws of physics were being flexible in ways that should not have been possible, and his entire understanding of engineering was being rewritten in real time. Prophet, his chief materials engineer, said. Dr. Sarah Matsuda had been with him since the beginning of the Indomitable project, and right now she looked ready to cry or laugh, or possibly both. "The biomechanical interface is doing something we didn't program. The hull plating is growing, not being assembled, growing, like a living thing." Prophet Kane stared at the structural readouts and felt his brain trying to process what he was seeing. The UES Indomitable was 12 kilometers of bleeding-edge technology, half of it reverse-engineered from Confederation databases, half of it purely human innovation born from 3 years of desperate experimentation. They had designed her to be powerful, adaptable, survivable. They had not designed her to be alive. "The adaptive armor we based on Confederation specs," he said slowly, working through the problem out loud. "But we added the biomechanical interface from our own research, neural network decision-making, molecular restructuring, self-repair capabilities." "Right," Matsuda agreed. "But Prophet, she's not just adapting, she's evolving. The armor in sections A7 through A14 has restructured itself in ways our simulations never predicted. It's more efficient, stronger, Better than what we designed. Prophet pulled up the structural analysis and felt something like awe creep into his exhaustion. The Indomitable was teaching herself how to be a better warship. They had given her the tools, and she was improving on their design. Is she safe? He asked. Define safe. Will she hold together in combat? Will the reactor containment hold? Will the weapons systems function as designed? Matsuda hesitated. Probably, maybe. I honestly don't know. This is beyond any engineering I've ever seen. Prophet Kane looked at the clock. 10 hours and 17 minutes until Admiral Hawthorne needed this ship operational. 10 hours until humanity bet everything on technology that was apparently developing a mind of its own. Then we test her, he said. Bring the main reactor to full power. Charge the primary weapons array. If she's going to fail, I'd rather know now than in the middle of a battle. Around him, the construction bay erupted into controlled chaos. Engineers scrambling to stations. Automated systems running diagnostic checks. The skeleton crew that would pilot Indomitable into her first combat and already strapping into their stations. And at the heart of it all, the ship herself began to wake up. Victoria Hawthorne was trying very hard not to think about the fact that 52 enemy warships would arrive in 9 hours and she had exactly 18 destroyers and a prayer to stop them with. The math was simple, brutal, unforgiving. 52 Confederation cruisers represented a combined firepower output of 4.7 petawatts. Enough energy to glass the surface of a planet in 47 minutes. Enough destructive capability to reduce her entire fleet to ionized particles in less time than it took to brew coffee. Her 18 destroyers at maximum output could generate 2.1 petawatts. Good. Respectable. Completely insufficient. Unless Prophet Kane finished the Indomitable on time. And unless the Indomitable worked as designed. And unless Victoria could convince a Confederation admiral with 52 ships that attacking Earth was a worse idea than retreating. Too many variables. Too much uncertainty. She was going to do it anyway. Admiral, Reeves said quietly. He had been pulling double shifts coordinating fleet repairs and looked like he was running on the same exhausted determination that kept her upright. Latest damage assessment. We can get 16 destroyers back to full combat effectiveness within 8 hours. The other 2 need at least 15 hours in dry dock. Victoria nodded. 16 versus 52 was barely better than 18 versus 52, but she would take any advantage she could get. What about the fighters? We lost 34 birds in the first engagement. We have replacement craft, but we're short on experienced pilots. Captain Hawthorne is running accelerated training sessions with the reserves. Sarah, her daughter, 22 years old and training pilots who might die in the next battle because Victoria had put them in harm's way. The weight of command was a physical thing pressing down on her shoulders. Every casualty, every damaged ship, every family that would receive notification that their loved one had died defending Earth's freedom. She carried it all and kept moving forward because stopping was not an option. Get me a live feed from Nevada Site 1, she said. I want to see what Prophet is building. The screen flickered to life showing the construction bay. And there hanging in the vast chamber like a metal cathedral was the UES Indomitable. She was incomplete. Scaffolding still covered sections of her hull. Power conduits were exposed in places where armor plating had not yet been installed. She looked raw, unfinished, dangerous. She was also the most beautiful thing Victoria had ever seen. 12 kilometers from bow to stern, biomechanical hull that seemed to shift and flow even while stationary. Fusion reactors that glowed with barely contained energy. Weapon arrays that made her destroyers look like toys. Prophet Kane appeared on a secondary screen, looking like death warmed over and still somehow grinning. Admiral, he said, you wanted terrifying. I give you the most powerful warship ever built by human hands. She'll fly, she'll fight, and when she enters that battlefield, the Confederation is going to collectively shit themselves. Despite everything, Victoria smiled. Can you have her ready in 9 hours? I can have her ready in 8. The real question is whether you're ready to see what 3 years of work looks like when we unleash it. Prophet, I've been ready for 3 years. Finish her and make sure she lives up to the name. The screen went dark. Victoria returned her attention to the tactical display and the countdown clock that showed 8 hours 43 minutes until the Eternal Dominion arrived. 8 hours until the largest battle in human history. 8 hours until they proved whether freedom was worth dying for. The Eternal Dominion dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system with 40 cruisers in perfect formation. She was a Dreadnought-class vessel, 3 kilometers of armored fury that had reduced rebellion after rebellion to ash in memory. Her reactor signature alone was enough to make planets surrender before she fired a shot. Fleet Marshal Torvanis had not come personally. But he had sent his best admiral and orders to resolve the Earth situation with extreme prejudice. Krevthar stood on the bridge of the Ascendant Glory and felt vindication surge through his blood. 52 ships total now, overwhelming force, superior numbers, standard Confederation doctrine applied with precision and power. All ships, he broadcast, formation Omega-7. We move on Earth in 1 standard hour. Any human vessel that does not withdraw will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is pacification. The fleet began moving into attack formation, a wall of metal and energy that would sweep aside the human defenders like dust before a storm. Analyst Tevessa looked up from her console, her crystalline form pulsing with rapid calculations. Admiral, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the planet's surface. Massive power signatures emerging from what appears to be underground construction facilities. Specify. Sir, the energy output is unlike anything in our database. It's reading at 8.3 petawatts from a single source. That's more than our entire fleet combined. Krevthar felt ice water replace the blood in his veins. Confirm those readings immediately. Confirmed, sir. Multiple redundant scans. The source is moving, rising from underground. It's massive. The largest stealth field in human history collapsed. Space itself seemed to shimmer and tear as electromagnetic camouflage that had hidden the Nevada construction site failed in a cascade of dissipating energy. And rising from the desert floor lifted by anti-gravity systems that should not have existed on a level 7 world came something that redefined what the word worship meant. The UES Indomitable rose into the void like a metal god awakening from sleep. 12 kilometers long, 47 million tons of mass. Hull plating that was part metal and part something alive, flowing and shifting in patterns that hurt to look at. Fusion reactors burning so hot they created gravity wells that pulled at nearby debris. Weapon arrays that covered every centimeter of her surface like the scales of some impossible beast. She was larger than any ship in the Confederation fleet. She was more powerful than any ship in the Confederation fleet, and she was accelerating toward them with a grace that made her seem alive. Victoria Hawthorne's face appeared on every screen in every Confederation vessel simultaneously. Grand Admiral Krevthar, she said. Her voice was iron, absolute, unshakable. This is Fleet Admiral Victoria Hawthorne commanding the United Earth ship Indomitable. You were warned to leave our system. You called for reinforcements instead. That was a mistake. She leaned forward, and her eyes were winter blue and completely without mercy. We completed the ship in 72 hours. From the moment you delivered your ultimatum to this moment, 8 billion people working as one, every factory, every scientist, every citizen who refused to accept slavery. 3 years of preparation, 72 hours of final assembly. This is what human determination looks like. This is what you get when you threaten our freedom. The Indomitable's main weapon array began to charge. Energy signatures spiking across the electromagnetic spectrum. Power readings that made Confederation sensors scream warnings. You have 60 seconds to begin your withdrawal, Victoria said. After that, I demonstrate what happens when you make humanity angry. The next 60 seconds lasted 1,000 years. Krevthar stood frozen on his bridge, watching tactical displays that showed impossible numbers. His weapons officer was running calculations and coming up with results that violated everything he knew about warfare. His navigator was plotting retreat vectors even though no order had been given. 52 ships against one should have been a certainty. Overwhelming numbers. Coordinated fire. Standard tactics applied with precision, except that one ship outmassed his entire fleet. That one ship was generating more power than his entire fleet. That one ship was crewed by beings who had spent 3 years learning how to kill Confederation vessels and had already proven they could do it. Sir, Tevessa said quietly, I recommend immediate withdrawal. The tactical analysis is clear. If we engage, we lose. We outnumber them 52-1, Krevthar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Numbers are irrelevant when the disparity in firepower is this extreme. Sir, that ship could destroy our entire fleet in under 3 minutes. I've run the calculations 17 times. The result is always the same. Krevthar looked at the countdown, 30 seconds remaining. He thought about 200 years of service, 47 successful campaigns, a perfect record that was about to end in either ignominious retreat or total annihilation. He thought about the crews under his command, thousands of beings from dozens of species, Good soldiers following orders from a confederation that demanded expansion at any cost. He thought about the humans who had saved the Wandering Star's crew 3 years ago and asked for nothing in return except the knowledge they needed to defend themselves. And he made the only decision that made sense. All shifts, he said, begin withdrawal to jump coordinates. Full retreat. We're leaving this system. The bridge erupted in protest, junior officers shouting about honor and duty and Confederation doctrine. But Krevthar silenced them with a gesture and opened a channel to the Indomitable. Admiral Hawthorne, he said, we're withdrawing. You've proven your point. Earth is not a species that can be conquered by force. Victoria's expression did not change. You're making the right choice, Admiral. But before you go, let me show you something. The Indomitable's main cannon fired a single shot, not at the Confederation fleet, past them, out into the asteroid belt 4.2 astronomical units away. The beam lasted 3 seconds. Pure concentrated energy coherent enough to maintain focus across millions of kilometers. When it struck its target, a 340-kilometer asteroid that had been orbiting the sun since before Earth had formed, the result was instantaneous. The asteroid vaporized, not exploded, vaporized, converted to superheated plasma that expanded outward in a perfect sphere, creating a debris field 2,400 kilometers across that would be visible from Earth for the next 6 months. That single shot, Victoria said calmly, carried the equivalent energy of my entire fleet firing continuously for 6 hours. The Indomitable has 47 similar weapons, plus 890-point defense turrets, plus particle beam arrays, plus kinetic batteries, plus systems your database doesn't have classifications for. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. I could end your fleet in 40 seconds, Admiral. Every ship, every crew member, every record of this campaign. I could glass your homeworlds. I could hunt down every Confederation installation in this sector. I could make the next 1,000 years of galactic history about humanity's revenge. The bridge of the ascendant glory had gone silent. Every being aboard listening to words that should have been impossible from a species they had labeled primitive. But I won't, Victoria continued, because that's not who we are. We didn't build the Indomitable for conquest. We built her for defense. We tried diplomacy first, Admiral. You chose force. We responded with force. Now you're choosing retreat. We're allowing it. She leaned back in her command chair, and for the first time since Krevthar had met her, she smiled. It was not a kind smile. Go home, Admiral. Tell your Confederation what happened here. Tell them Earth is free and will remain free. Tell them we're open to trade, to cultural exchange, to peaceful relations between equals. But tell them if they ever come here with war, again we'll be ready. And next time we'll have 50 ships like the Indomitable, waiting. The transmission ended. Krevthar gave the order, and the Confederation fleet turned away from Earth and jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying the message that would change the galaxy forever. Victoria sat in the command chair aboard the Indomitable and allowed herself exactly 10 seconds of trembling hands before she locked it down. They had won. Impossible. Insane. Against every odd and every calculation. But they had won. Fleet status, she said. Her voice was steady even though her heart was trying to beat its way out of her chest. Reeves appeared on screen from Norad, grinning like a madman. All ships reporting nominal. 0 casualties. Ma'am, we just won a war without firing a shot in the final battle. That was the goal, Lieutenant. That was always the goal. She opened a channel to Prophet Kane, who was probably collapsed somewhere in the Nevada facility. Silas, this is Hawthorne. Your ship performed flawlessly. You built a miracle, thank you. Prophet's exhausted voice came back. Admiral, I just watched tactical data from the engagement. Do you know what you just did? You made the Confederation retreat. No one makes the Confederation retreat. We just rewrote the rules of galactic politics. We proved that freedom is stronger than force, Victoria replied, and that humanity will never accept slavery no matter the cost. Get some rest, Prophet. You've earned it. She closed the channel and pulled up the fleet-wide frequency. Every ship, every crew member who had trained for 3 years and fought for 72 hours and refused to surrender. This is Admiral Hawthorne to all Earth Defense Force personnel. Today we made history. We proved that 8 billion humans working together can accomplish the impossible. We proved that our freedom is not negotiable. We proved that Earth will never bow to tyranny. She paused, looking around the bridge of the Indomitable at faces that showed exhaustion and pride and the fierce joy of victory. But this is not the end. It's the beginning. The galaxy knows we exist now. Some will come in friendship. Others will come seeking what the Confederation sought. We'll be ready. We'll be strong, and we'll never forget that we fought this war not for conquest, but for the right to determine our own future. Get some rest. See your families. Mourn the fallen. Celebrate the victory. And tomorrow we start building the future we just won the right to have. Hawthorne out. The channel closed. Victoria sat alone in the vast command center of humanity's greatest achievement and felt tears she had been holding back for 3 years finally break free. They had won. Her daughter was alive. Her species was free. And the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months later, the Galactic Confederation Council convened an emergency session to address the Earth situation. High Counselor Yethnara stood before the assembled representatives and spoke words that had never been spoken in 10,000 years of Confederation history. Earth is hereby classified as Level 2 civilization with full sovereign status. All protectorate proceedings are permanently suspended. The Sol system is recognized as independent territory under human governance. The chamber erupted in protest, but Yethnara silenced them with a gesture. Furthermore, we have received formal petitions from 14 former protectorate worlds requesting independence, citing Earth's example. The Confederation must adapt or face dissolution. The age of forced expansion is over. She looked around the chamber at species that had grown complacent with conquest and comfortable with oppression. Humanity has shown us that some species cannot be conquered, that freedom is a force stronger than any weapon. We can either learn from this or be destroyed by our own arrogance. I recommend we learn. On Earth, Victoria Hawthorne stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable and looked out at the fleet she now commanded. 23 ships total, 8 more Indomitable-class battleships under construction. Fighter wings training to standards that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Her daughter walked up beside her, newly promoted to Commodore, and looking far too young to be commanding a battle group. "Mom," Sarah said quietly, "do you think they'll come back?" Victoria watched the sun glint off hull plating that was part metal and part something alive and smiled. "I hope so," she said, "next time for the right reasons." In the void beyond humanity's fleet stood Watch, ready, vigilant, free. And the galaxy learned that some species were not meant to be conquered. They were meant to be feared, respected, and left alone. Humanity had spoken. The Confederation had listened. And the age of empires built on subjugation died the day a single ship named Indomitable proved that freedom was worth any price, any sacrifice in any war. The message that traveled through the galaxy in the months that followed was simple. Earth tried diplomacy first, remember that.